comments on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? No. Okay, we're gonna go to our 6:35 public hearing for 15 Summit Avenue. And I live on Summit Avenue, a couple doors from this property, so I'm gonna recuse myself. And I'm gonna ask Jared to chair this portion of the meeting, because we don't have a chair or a vice chair.
Is that your,
Oh, and I did turn, and
I turned it off.
we're on television for those of you who are interested.
Or your,
Yep.
ordinance, while you're done.
Yep. We're gonna take everything down.
Just in case.
Take care of it, yeah. All right. So we have Sandra Koblars, is that the right pronunciation? Who lives at, or the property is 15 Summit Ave, Easthampton, and she's seeking a special permit and variance to allow construction of a single-family home on a non-conforming lot under Section 11 and 13.1 of the Easthampton zoning ordinance. The property was used as a print shop and has been unoccupied for the last few years. It was recently bought by the applicant, who planned to convert it to a single-family residence. It is 9,000 square feet, and the zoning ordinance requires for a single-family lot. Oh, right. Well, is it the
15,000.
okay, 15,000. And the previous building encroached on the required 30-foot front setbacks. Apparently, the applicant filed for a building permit, and there was a discrepancy between what the applicant thought was allowed pursuant to being grandfathered in to the non-conforming use. Specifically, the building inspector gave permission to what was it, the sorry.
You can also just ask the applicant to tell you the story, if you want.
Sure. Well, why don't we do that? Would you like to explain kind of how we got here and what you're seeking?
Sure, I can. My name is Mark Reed from Heritage Surveys. I am representing Sandy, who is here tonight before the ZBA on this application. And I had submitted a letter and dated September 3rd that contained not only the application form, but a little bit of history to this project and to the site in itself. For the dating back to 1957, I believe, one second. Dating back to 1957, when this lot was created and approved by the town of Easthampton Planning Board, and the dwelling or the print shop, I'm not sure if it was a print shop in 1957, but the building, the structure was located on the property that exists out there today. When Sandy purchased the property, as a part of the application form, there was a mortgage inspection form that is done by Harold Eaton and Associates out of Hadley that shows the dwelling as it existed back when she purchased the property in May of 2015. Through the process of the reconstruction or the remodeling of the building itself. Permits were issued by the building inspector to remodel the dwelling from its past condition of a print shop to a single-family house that she intends to live in. During that work, her contractor realized that the foundation, which was an old cinder block foundation, was in failure and needed to be replaced. So he had discussions with the building inspector, and subsequent to that, the dwelling was removed and a new foundation was constructed on the property. We went out and did a survey of the foundation as it exists today. The house foundation was totally removed, but the garage portion of it remained and was not changed. So I can give a copy of this plan to the board members. And I also have pictures that might help the members of the site itself. Other thing that was done was that the original dwelling had a length of, excuse me, 58 feet in length along Plaza Avenue, and that was reduced down to 51 feet, so that the length of the house along Plaza Avenue has been reduced overall. And these are pictures that were taken, that I took yesterday. Jamie, need one, if you could share?
Sure.
Right, one short. It shows the different angles of the foundation as it exists today. So through the process, the building inspector went out and did his inspections, as he should, and issued a cease and desist on the building and cited sections within the zoning bylaw in an application. This application, as a result, this application was submitted to your board. Foremost, under the section 11.12 is the pre-existing non-conforming structures, single-family and or two-family structures. Item A within the zoning bylaw. So we request, the request is for the zoning board of appeals to act favorably on this application, so that right now the foundation is just sitting there, it's backfilled around it, but there's no floor system to it at all. And we like to try to get the house built so that Sandy can have a place to live. She's not living there, of course. She's living with friends until it is completed.
So as I understand it, the discrepancy between kind of the building inspector and the contractor was that there was an assumption, at least, or I guess it wasn't really, there wasn't a lot of communication, but the building inspector assumed that the house would be raised and that there would be a new foundation installed on top of or
Underneath.
under some.
Correct.
And so once the old foundation was destroyed, that took it out of the pre-existing non-conforming use, which wouldn't have required a permit if it wasn't destroyed.
Right. Well, the entire foundation wasn't destroyed, for one, and because it didn't have a basement, it had a slab foundation, so you can't raise a house without a first floor, because the walls just sit on the foundation, and there's no way of picking up a house that's on a slab foundation. You just physically can't do it without everything,
apart.
tearing it apart.
Right.
So the contractor felt that, you know, he was doing the right thing, and, you know, knowing that it was on a slab foundation, and you can't raise a house without a first floor that holds the box together.
Right.
So he felt he was doing, you know, the right thing. Unfortunately, you know,
Hindsight.
hindsight, yes, you're right. That's not the way it ended up. But I guess looking at it, the garage foundation wasn't removed,
That was the
and
garage.
it's still there in the pictures here.
Was the garage attached to the
Yes.
house?
Yes, this is the picture of the listing when, and I can pass this around. This is a view of the
Oh, I see.
listing
Okay.
from Summit Street. So that sometime after 1957, there was a connecting breezeway and two-car garage installed. And this is from the town's record. The second sheet is from the assessor's office, showing the plot and the house on the property. Being longer by 58 feet, and now the house, as the foundation exists today, is only 51 feet going along Plaza Avenue.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant or anything they need
Is there,
clarified?
is there anybody here to speak on this application? No. Okay. Oh,
I have a question.
And please state your name and address for the record.
Sure, my name is Wendy Marcus, 7 Plaza Avenue in Easthampton, obviously. I'm very excited that someone's building there residentially. I think it's good for our neighborhood. I'm just concerned about what are the plans for the rest of the house, the height, like will everything else be following the guidelines that we have to follow? Like I believe it's 25 feet high, things like that.
Correct. The construction of the house, which there are building plans that were part of the application, meet all the zoning requirements and within the town being the height. It is a, okay, right there, right. It is a cape-looking house with a second-story loft area, a bedroom upstairs on the second floor for it, and open sections to the first floor. So that I can show, actually, I have bigger plans right here. So this is the, if I can look, or show the board first, you have them
We
there.
have that, yeah.
So for the audience, these are large scale of what I believe you're looking at. So this is the view from Plaza Avenue with the garage.
Summit Avenue.
What's that?
Summit.
I'm sorry, you're right, Summit. The rear of the house being on the other side, the left and the right side of the house in itself. This is the view, this would be the view from Plaza Avenue. So the entrance door is coming off of Summit into the breezeway area.
And I'm not sure whether it's at all clear to the folks in the audience who don't have get to have all the papers that we have, but basically the issue is that the front of the house, like the footprint before, is approximately 10 feet closer to the road than what would be allowed under the current, and then on the side, at the back, it's about 2.5 feet closer to the road than what would be allowed, and in the back, it's about 2 feet closer to the neighbor than,
Yeah, the
than
neighbor
what would be
to the north.
than what would be allowed. So that's, we're talking about 2 feet, 2 feet, and 10 feet in the front closest to Summit.
Right. Now, the location of the house relative to what was there and what is there today along Plaza Avenue and Summit did not change. So the foundation was put in the exact location of where it was. The difference was coming up Plaza Avenue to the north, it was shortened by 7 feet.
So it used to actually go to within like 6 feet of the property
Correct.
line.
So it's shortened by 7 feet. The garage foundation, of course, I mentioned, is there, it was there, it's
Right.
still there today. There was no change to the garage. And there's adequate for one-car parking off-street onto the property as required under the zoning regulations, although it's a 2-car garage.
Are there any other comments or questions from members of the audience?
I couldn't
Can you state your
understand.
name? Can you please state your name and address?
I'm Lourdes Russo, I live at 17 Summit Avenue. I was just kind of surprised because I watched the whole construction, I'm right next door. And it seems to me that everything was put back exactly like it had been. And I just couldn't understand why it went as far as it did, and then when she was all excited about them finally framing her house, she gets a cease and desist order, and everything looked the same as it did before.
Right. It's a process, not so much an outcome, like the way that the rule is
But
written.
if the house was, if it's out of compliance now, wasn't it out of compliance when it was built?
Yes.
The
Well,
issue,
yes.
and
Yeah,
I think I know what
pre-existing,
she's talking
yeah.
about.
Yeah, I just
The,
don't understand.
the issue was that the builder took out a permit to basically remodel the existing structure. And he demolished the existing structure and started to build a new structure. So then his building permits weren't right. That's why Joe, the building inspector, went there and told him to stop, because they have to come here to this process before they can continue.
But
If they were remodeling the structure, then his permit would have been in
I
order.
think actually what your question might go to is like the concept of grandfathering. So our zoning ordinance is newer than the house. So when the house was built, it didn't violate any rules. But then after it was built, the city created the zoning ordinance that we have now and put in these rules for like how far back from the street and how far back from the side, and put in all those rules. But of course, when they made those rules, they didn't say, if your house doesn't match with these rules, you have to tear it down, because that would be crazy. But what it meant was that if you were going to build something new in one of those places, you would have to follow the rules, but you didn't have to tear down your house and build it new in compliance with the rules. And what happened was, because of the way that the builder was handling, just like what Tony was just saying, like because they actually did tear it down and are building it new, it triggers like the rule that if you're going to build it new, you have to follow the rules. As opposed to if you're remodeling, then you get to keep it the way that it was because we recognize that the rules weren't there when you built it. Does that make sense?
No. No, I guess I'm just a simple-minded person, but it just seems to me that to allow a bill to go as far as this one did and then stop it, it's like,
Oh, well that's definitely what Tony was going to, which was that the building inspector approved a permit for not tearing it down and building it new, but approved a permit for remodeling it as it was. And that's just it's a different category of thing. And then the builder did it differently than what the permit was issued for. So I guess it's not so much that, like the city changed the rules as that the builder didn't do it the way that the builder said he was going to do it when he got the permit.
The other thing that, just to bring to light, and I agree with the whole discussion, but the builder did talk to the building inspector, and the building inspector said, okay, if you're gonna do X, Y, or Z, you need to pay an additional fee for that work, which he did do, and so the fee and the permits, he felt in good faith that
Right.
he was doing the right thing by paying, okay, here's an additional fee, which I got copies of the
Right.
check.
For the foundation, yeah.
Right,
Right.
so that, the additional fees were paid for all that work, and he felt that, he was you know.
It was a compliance.
Right. It's-
Right, he was in compliance until.
Right. It's one of those things where the building inspector totally understands what the rules are because he's the building inspector, but the builder probably had never been in a situation before where they were tearing down a non-conforming house, and it just wasn't even on the builder's radar that changing the way that he was doing things was gonna drastically change the way that what he was doing fit within the zoning. So I think, like, the way that Jared described it earlier is just like kind of a miscommunication is probably like the best description. Like, it doesn't sound
Right.
like anybody did anything wrong on purpose, but just like it's kind of a weird situation.
Right.
So
I've got a question.
can you give your name
Okay.
for Jamie?
I
And where you live?
live at 12 Summit Avenue, LANUCHA, 12 Summit. I live right across the street. Now, when they were tearing down that building, the front of the building was left standing. And it was propped up with 2x6s. But I believe they were afraid that the wind could come along and tear it down. They were using that as a grandfather clause.
Mhm.
Now, for safety reasons, I think they tore it down.
Right. You're right,
That was probably the
and,
right-
you know,
Yeah.
looking at it, you know, Monday morning quarterback and everything,
Right.
you know, if they had left the garage intact and just replaced the house portion of it, that would have been better, but I think he felt and everyone felt that, you know, they were trying to do what was
Yeah.
right for Sandy to make sure she had a safe house
Right.
to live in the future.
Did you have something? Can you say your name and address?
Leo Sullivan, 9 Richardson Circle. And my question was, I grew up in a different city, but I remember there were completely different rules. If you left a portion of the foundation, because I noticed that you said the garage piece of the foundation was intact, that didn't enter into this at all, or?
Right, well, that's something that, I'm not sure if the building inspector has that same opinion relative to the foundation.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the garage foundation was not removed, it was
Right.
still intact, the picture's there, I'm not sure.
So it could be grandfathered in.
I
Correct.
think the building inspector wanted to make sure that he didn't overreach, and so referred her to this process. Or
And even if that had been the case, it still would have needed a special permit to go through to do that much change to a pre-existing non-conforming.
Same thing we're doing now, yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that wanted to say anything?
What's the order that we, or actually we
Usually-
close the.
Usually we
public
close the
hearing.
public
Okay.
hearing.
So,
I want me to move, I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second
all in favor? Aye. Public hearing's closed. So, I think we got a good background as to kind of how it all occurred, how we got here. Now, it's the process of,
Right, making sure that it can fit.
right,
So.
Sandy, did everyone sign in? Sign in sheet?
Do you have any other?
we have, I don't know if this one applies, 11.12.
I mean, I guess that's basically what we're deciding, whether it's that and we do a
Right, so
special
then we go to the
permit.
special permit, and do we also need a variance?
Well, they would be one or the other,
Okay.
cause like either 11.1 is gonna apply if we, depending on how we do the garage, I think. Cause it's, like, pre-existing non-conforming uses can be altered, extended, or changed by special permit. And so the question is whether this is an alteration, extension, or change versus, versus like a new construction.
So where's the new construction?
Well, it's like the
That would be
implication of
good.
the opposite, like it's, like you can,
Mm-hmm.
they may be altered, extended, or changed.
13-1.
So 11. I mean, there's the unsafe construction one, which is maybe like a little problematic. The 11.5. I feel like 11.5 kind of pushes us to a variance, because 11.5 it's about unsafe structures, that any structure determined to be unsafe may be restored to a safe condition provided such work on any non-conforming structure shall not place it in greater non-conformity. So that part's, we're good there. But provided further that if the cost to restore the structure shall exceed 50% of its physical replacement value, which, I mean, clearly that's gonna be in play here, then it has to be reconstructed as a conforming structure and used only for a conforming use. So we've got the conforming use, that's not a problem. But since it's not getting rebuilt as a conforming structure, I don't know, like, I mean, I guess that's like a way around, maybe that's a way around 11.1 and the, like, being able to alter, extend, or change, because it's basically like, if it's non-conforming, you could almost like tear it down, except that then you have to bring it into conforming. I don't know, I feel like those two sections don't really go together that well. I guess it's 11, yeah. I guess it's 11.
So it'd either fall in B
B.
or C. C would require a variance,
Right.
and B would require a special permit. So it's
Right.
11.12, either B or C. So the question is, do we find the proposed changes would not significantly intensify any existing nonconformities or create any new nonconformities, and that the proposed changes would not cause the structure to become substantially more detrimental to the existing nonconforming structure to the neighborhood?
Right. I mean, I guess, like, it's, maybe we could go with B, but in order to go with B, we have to find that there is in fact still an existing structure.
Right. So it would seem like the safer route would be to go to C and require a variance.
Well, variances are just harder.
Right.
Because, like, it's gotta be the whole soil condition, shape, or topography. It's that and,
So when they tore it down,
Where's the structure?
they ended up taking some of the land.
Especially affecting such a shore structure.
Is that what
Although
happened?
there is no structure there.
Keep the side conversations down, please,
When
before
he tore it
step
down, he
outside.
shortened up the
must
foundation.
be, it's related to.
Oh, shorten the
Yeah,
foundation.
so it's actually less than non-conforming now,
Right.
because it's
This is smaller,
right, smaller
but it's the
footprint.
same footprint though.
I guess we could, there is now an existing structure. It's just not the existing structure, or and they're not actually connected right now. 'Cause it
Is that the
was-
garage?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
oh, they are?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if we look at the findings for a variance, it said it has to be with respect to a particular parcel of land or an existing building on the land. So, you know, we've got the garage foundation still, and there's now the new foundation that's there, that are connected. And then there must be, but I don't know. So it would have to be, I feel like if we're gonna go with the variance, we like don't really consider the building, cause if we're gonna consider that there's a existing building, then we should just like stick with 11.12B. Cause it's not like it's not gonna intensify any existing any of the
Right.
pre-existing
'Cause it's on the
nonconformities.
same
Cause it's on the same footprint,
Footprint, yeah.
and it's gonna be the same bulk.
Right, and if anything, it actually is decreased because it's
Right.
Mhm.
And it's
further
not,
away.
and it's not creating any new nonconformities. And the proposed changes are not going to cause the structure to become substantially more detrimental than the existing nonconforming structure. I don't know, I guess I'm kind of inclined to feel like, I kind of feel like since we've got the pre-existing foundation and they're connected, that it's, like that's
That's
kind of enough to get us into 11.12B. I'm trying to think of like, you know, a situation where we're gonna feel like that was like going too far. And it's, you know, like this is definitely a hard situation because we've had people before us who wanted to basically get a variance to do this.
Mhm.
And we've
You
said,
haven't.
we're not gonna give you the variance, but just be really careful about the way that you do your reconstruction so that you never actually tear your structure all the way down.
Mhm.
So, I don't know.
You have any thoughts?
I think it's something what you're saying, instead of 11.2B, is it?
11.12. Yeah.
It's less non-conforming than it was before.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the rough thing is just the whole, like, normally it's the requirement, what, of like one wall standing. Where, Jamie, do you know where that, does that rule like come out of the zoning ordinance? I remember us talking about it with that barn in the,
Yeah,
or the garage and
it's not in the ordinance, but it's implied because the structure is still existing.
the, right,
And according to building codes and things like that, and how you would do construction, if you leave part of the structure,
right,
it's still considered existing,
mm-hmm,
or at least that's what the board has found
right.
in the past.
I feel like going with 11.12 is more like in the
Mhm.
spirit of the
Right.
zoning ordinance than doing a variance here. Like I feel like a variance is more of a, like pushing the zoning ordinance further than it's supposed to go, because I feel like what we have here is a situation where they could have done it to fit within 11.12B, but there was just miscommunication with like the building inspector and like what exactly was happening there, and that's why it didn't get done that way. But like the intention was always
Mhm.
to do it in a way
Right.
that would have fit within that. So I'm kind of inclined to go that route rather than consider a variance, just because I feel like a variance is like
Yeah,
more
right.
like pushing it.
Yeah, I agree as well. Alright, so if we look to 11.12B, we'll find that the proposed variance would not significantly intensify the existing nonconformities or create any new nonconformities. Based on the footprint, it falling within, I don't think it it significantly intensifies any existing nonconformities or creates any new nonconformities.
No, it reduces.
If anything, it reduces it. It would not cause the structure to be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure. Again, it reduces the violation with regard to the setback. It also changes it from non-conforming use as a business
Right.
into residential, which fits within the general character of the neighborhood, obviously more. So I think that fits. And then we would go to the. I would assume we go to the
1279.
1279
Yeah.
for the special permit criteria. And so under 12.9, we can't grant a special permit unless we find the reasonable fulfillment of the following. A, the conformance with the provisions of the ordinances, the City of Easthampton, general laws of Massachusetts, and all applicable laws and regulations of state and federal agencies. I don't see anything that violates any of that.
Yeah, I feel like none of these really are implicated. Like there's no
issues with with the natural, scenic, or historic features
because
of the
there's
site.
the same footprint.
Traffic and safety, I don't see any issues there. It's the same.
Right. If anything, it's going to be better because it's bringing it into a conforming use.
Disposal of sewage and refuse and drainage, no issues with that. Nothing with the wetlands, watersheds, aquifers, the water supply, sewage, it's all the same. Off-street parking,
Nothing
loading and
is
parking.
going to change.
Right. Nothing with the vegetated barriers. Setback, like we said, if anything, it's better now. Yeah, I think all of these are satisfied. So
So do you want to? I'll move.
Sure.
Sure. I'll move to issue a special permit to permit the alteration and the change to the structure at 15 Summit Avenue to allow it to be rebuilt in conformity with the plans that have been provided to us as part of the application.
Seconded.
second. All right. All in favor? Aye.
All right, well, thank you very much.
So,
Appreciate it.
there will be a written decision, usually it takes about a week, and then once that's filed with the city clerk, there's a 20-day appeal period. So, if you act, I guess since there's permits required here, you're probably not gonna be able to get your new permit until after the 20-day appeal, or will Joe issue a permit? I don't know. You may or may not be able to get a permit from Joe in that 20-day appeal period. Even if you can, you pursue it at your own risk. That's like what we always have to say.
With special permits, it's sort of up to the building inspector's discretion, but before that appeal period ends, everything you do is at your own risk. So, but you're already at your own risk, so.
Right. The appeal would be, like if somebody else in your neighborhood didn't like the decision that we had rendered, that would be like what would lead to an appeal. So it's not something that would happen like from the city, it's something that would happen from somebody else in the community who didn't like our decision.
Okay.
So you can evaluate what you think your risks are for that.
Okay, all right, great, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Not everyone would check on my children.
Just wanna take a second.
Thank you so much for coming.
Before we start the next, to let everyone
Thanks, you guys,
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Been through hell and back.
Thank you.
welcome to the neighborhood. I'm looking forward to being in that neighborhood.
Thank you for letting me short.
I'm so sick of looking at that pile of dirt. No, I gotta move the lawn. You lose your dogs in there. Thanks so much for coming.
Would you have done it all again?
But you were doing great. No.
Thanks
a lot.
for being on.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Everybody left you.
I guess so.
That's my neighbor.
Well, her jacket, she got her soldiers. That's her jacket though.
So,
The applicant.
Okay. Well, we made a full circle anyway.
Okay, now let's go to the second public hearing tonight from Pioneer Valley Habitat for Humanity, seeking a determination of minor changes, modifications, amendments to an approved comprehensive permit for 2 single-family residential units at 248 and 230 East Street. If you could explain what you're proposing to do?
Sure. And the address is currently 246, 248, but I think at the time of the permit, it was 230. So in case there's any confusion.
Okay, so we probably want to correct the address because the permit, the revision will have to go on the land records, I assume, and we'll correct that.
Okay. So I think the 246, 248, I believe, is what was determined to be the final address. I brought, there's plans that probably you have in your packet, but I brought these that have the changes highlighted in red.
Thank you.
And my name is Megan McCrown, the Executive Director of Pioneer Valley Habitat. There's no change to the footprint of the building or to the approach from the road. But we were looking at the drainage around the house after the construction period, and we've been on the site, and we would like to widen the space for the swale that runs along the side of the property. Also, when we did the original permit, we had 2 sheds located that said to be determined, location to be filled. So we've done the final locating of those sheds and adjusted the grading to make sure the runoff goes around the sheds appropriately. We also wanted to make the walkway from the parking for the unit number 1 to be a more direct route. The original plan was sort of a semicircle walkway, and we thought that with a minor shortening actually of the parking area, so slightly decreasing the amount of impervious surface, we could actually get enough space for a direct walkway to the front door, rather than before, because the parking was closer, to get the grading for handicap accessibility, it was this kind of silly long arc. So I didn't think it was very practical for the grandmother with the walker who is going to be living in that unit to walk in a circle to get to her house and have to shovel all of that. So this shortens the walkway. We consider these relatively minor changes, but we wanted to come before you today to get your review.
How big are they're sheds, not storage units? I think of a storage unit as a metal box. These are sheds.
These are sheds. Yeah, both of the houses are slab on grade, there's no basement, and the attics are all full of insulation, so this is so they can have somewhere to store a lawnmower or a bicycle or.
How big are they?
I didn't bring I believe that this is to scale, but it's something like 12 by 8, and the other one I think might be 12 by 10.
So they're small.
Yeah. That's just off the top of my head, but they are definitely sheds, not garages or a larger structure.
And they're not trailers, they're.
Correct, they're stick-built sheds by
Just
Habitat
aesthetically.
Volunteers,
Okay,
yes.
just aesthetically. Does anyone have any questions or concerns?
No, it's pretty straightforward.
No.
Does everyone agree that this is a minor modification
Yes.
to their approved
Yeah.
comprehensive permit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all we have to do is make a motion, or two motions, that this is a minor modification, and then we approve the modification. Is that correct?
You just have to find that they're minor, and by finding that they're minor, they are
Right, to do
deemed
it.
to
Okay.
incorporate that
All right.
change.
Would anyone like to make a motion? I'll make a motion.
Okay.
That the zoning board of appeals feels that the changes proposed by Pioneer Valley Habitat for Humanity are minor, and as such, go with the original comprehensive permit.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, who's second?
Chair.
What?
Jared, second.
Oh, I,
Sure, yeah.
Well, we're excited that the homeowners are gonna get to move in soon, so.
It's looking pretty good. I go down East Street a lot. It looks
Oh,
nice.
yeah.
Looks really nice.
Well, I'm very glad that you guys approved this, because the site contractor's set to go on Monday to start doing the grading, so. I was crossing my fingers, I wouldn't have to tell him no, but, yeah, we're looking to get the landscaping done this fall, so that we can they can move in this
You don't
winter.
have to deal with it in the bad weather either, you know.
Yeah.
How much interior work has done? Are the walls up?
The walls are up, the sheetrock is hung, we're just starting painting and trim.
Oh, so you are along.
Yeah, at our speed, the interior trim and doors and cabinets will take a while, but we should be able to finish it.
What do you get, a lot of volunteers that come in to do this work? Is that how?
That is, and actually, the homeowner for Unit 1 arranged to do a volunteer orientation here at the city building next week with the Housing Commission. So if any of you guys want to be volunteers, we have an orientation that's going to be right here in the municipal building.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to the beginning of our agenda. The approval of minutes of 8/18/2015. I have one question, Jamie, about the minutes.
Yep.
Under the public hearings, it's listed for the chicken application. Present were Elizabeth Finnegan, the applicant, Dan Hagan, city councilor, and 12 members of the public. Isn't Dan Hagan just a member of the public when he comes? I'm just wondering why we single out a council person who happens to speak on an application. Just a question. I would consider him, there are 13 members of the public, and then later on you actually quoted people's names, and instead of making it like just because you're a city council, when you attend a meeting, you're
recognized?
You're recognized more than average Joe citizen, that's all.
Okay, I can amend.
Well, it doesn't need to be amended, but in the future.
I don't know
Well-
if it matters, do you?
Well, I mean, did he come as
When
city
he
councilor
spoke,
or as a
he said,
member?
he said, I'm Dan Hagan, I'm the city councilor, not for this district, but for another district, and I'm
Okay.
here, so, he was here in his official role.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
it seemed like he was here in his official role, so I wrote it into the minutes
Yeah.
that way.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
All right.
As he recognized, as he introduced himself and
Right,
told
and he
them.
did say that like other people in the area had gone to him and talked to him in his role as a, even though he wasn't, he's not the
Yeah,
counselor of that precinct.
Yeah.
I just look at him more as a member of the
Right.
public, rather.
Right. That he shouldn't be getting special
I mean, I'm-
treatment.
That's all.
I'm
Okay.
happy to amend it.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
everyone
I
disagrees
think
with
it
me,
was
so.
just a general question, right?
Yeah, I leave it alone.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the August 18th zoning board meeting.
Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda. Correspondent and requests for comments from other boards and committees. I do not believe we have any.
There are none.
Okay, reports from city officials.
The
We
only,
don't-
the only thing, there was some postcards on,
Yes.
on
Yeah, yeah,
some
yeah,
some
we got
mail.
those.
So the postcards are from Valley CDC to invite everyone to the Parsons Village open house, which is, I believe,
25th.
25th
Coming up
of September,
shortly.
Friday.
and the other piece was from DHCD, I think just
Oh.
giving some information about zoning, or, you're looking at it, so the housing, affordable housing seminars and stuff like that. We don't have any money in the budget, so if you wanna go, it's.
It's at the Lantana in Randolph on Friday, October 2nd. If anyone wants to go, there's the registration form. Okay. Other related businesses, review of zoning ordinance regarding farm animals, chickens. Now, I know our approval from 2 months ago was appealed.
Mhm.
However, I don't know whether just because of that, and we had a lot of neighbors last month, is a reason to change the regulations. I suspect if you were a homeowner and the zoning regulations said you needed to get a special permit if you were gonna get 2 chocolate labs or 2 yippy terriers or 2 hunting dogs in your dog run, all the neighbors would come to the public hearing and express concern, even though those are perfectly acceptable. Or if a house was sold and they had 2 teenagers with their driving licenses and cars, neighbors would come to a public hearing to express concern. And is there really a concern about chickens, or is it the perception? And I would request, this is my opinion, Jamie, that we ask the health commissioner, Jackie Duda, how many chicken households she has on her list or have registered or whatever it is, and if there are any issues with them. And if there are, then maybe we should change them.
We should look at it, yeah.
But just to change it because neighbors, in my opinion, aren't aware of what 4 chickens do. I just don't think that's fair to the people who want to have chickens.
Right, I agree with you.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
I'd rather have chickens than the 2 chocolate
if-
labs, the 2 yippy terriers.
But if you got something from
Jackie,
you
yeah,
could-
if we have an
we should
issue,
investigate it.
Okay, so my understanding of the reason why I was asked to put that in the agenda was because there was the sort of the conversations were that it's unnecessarily burdensome to go through a special permit process, and that the board was interested in making it easier to
oh,
have
see, and
chickens
I
on
would agree with that. And I was under the impression we were looking to make it harder. That
Well, so, I mean, this is, so I was just asked to put it on the agenda. It's
Okay.
really up to the board to discuss, and, you know,
Who asked you to do that? Just,
it came up in the last meeting.
okay.
I thought that there was the conversation that the board should discuss it, so I put it on the agenda, so we could discuss it, you know, because it's not on the agenda, it can't be discussed at all.
well, why don't we
Yeah.
do like you said,
Yeah.
go to the,
Unless we hear otherwise, like what you were talking about, I don't think there's a problem with the way it is.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't
I
either.
agree. I would even take out the special permit, because to me, requiring the public hearing gives a perception that this use is maybe different, and maybe you wouldn't want it in your neighborhood. And I don't, so we should hear from Jackie whether there are issues with chickens.
right.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, last item, ZBA process and policies discussion.
I don't remember why I was asked to put that on the agenda.
I think we're doing very good with our processes and policies.
Okay, so no discussion.
Okay, does anyone have anything else to bring up tonight?
Nope.
You did a
Motion
good-
to
I was
close?
gonna say Jared did a good job on
Yes,
that,
you did.
filling in with on the
Thanks, I was not expecting that.
11th hour.
Yeah, yeah.
I asked Maggie, but she didn't.
Yeah,
want
she
to.
did. It's okay.
We
It
drew
was
straws
probably-
at Tony and I said, no, we'll get Jared.
I'm the newest.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I ask, do you guys want to carry these, either of those items or anything else onto future agendas?
Maybe the chickens, a report
Yeah,
from
I think,
Jackie
yeah.
Duda.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would. It's a good thing to look at, even if it's
Yeah.
only once every other year or every year. It's a good thing to look at. Shows that we're interested in
Right.
either making it easier or harder,
Making it harder.
depending on
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
the situation is with, you know, the health department
Right.
and the public.
Mm.
Okay.
Great.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Thank you.